think once a person gets to the point when they realize that their beliefs were given to them and that you can shift your beliefs, once a person really gets to that point where they understand they can create their reality, literally, with their words, with their thoughts, then I think you stop being a victim entirely. And then every moment that comes up, okay, what am I believing here that's causing this suffering? I mean, you and I met at Medicine Festival, and we just vibed out. You invited me on this podcast relatively quickly, you could say, in our relationship.
Yeah.
But you just felt it.
Why do you think that was? Why do you think I invited you on?
I don't know. I'm not very smart.
Were you honest?
I guess I'm somewhat honest. I don't know. Why did you invite me on? What did you sense in that moment? I'm genuinely curious what you sensed in that moment.
Yeah. I'll save that for the end of the podcast.
Okay.
No, I can do.
Okay.
I tried to refrain from compliments before, because I feel it might be perceived as like I'm just kind of buttering you up to talk to make you feel good.
Yeah.
Because that's happened before. Of like,
oh really?
It changes the energy of the podcast sometimes. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, of course there's ways to orchestrate authentically, but orchestrate the conversation in some way. But no, I was just going to talk to you about it. This is great.
I already feel good, by the way. So, I'm already complimenting myself. You're amazing. I love you. To me, that's one of the most important things to do.
I say you should never have a coffee if you don't feel good already. That's a little rule.
Yes, I'm the same with, not always apply this, but I'm the same with weed. Ideally, like for me, or any drug like that, I don't like things as escapes. However, I do believe coffee and weed and all sorts of things that we can get addicted to. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and he's like, there's space for that. It's not black and white, like you're either addicted or you're not. There's space for like sometimes needing that cup of coffee or having that need for that joint or whatever it might be. And I say need, I mean, obviously I could always be like, oh, well, you're not going to die if you don't have it, obviously. But I just think there's so much space for that, and there's so much shaming when life is so complex. Human emotion and self-relationship is so dynamic and fluid and complex. It's not like if I do this behavior, then that means that I did a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's way too simple and not what life really is.
Yeah.
I think people would just be, there's more room for compassion.
And not seeing it so black and white.
Yeah.
I think if anything's black and white, that's problematic, to try and look for that. Try and look for the kind of real, like, yeah, it's like I say that, like, you shouldn't have the thing before you feel kind of complete, but I think I can recognize when I'm not, and I'm reaching for something outside of myself to just alter my state, and that's okay now and again. But if I'm doing that every day, if I'm doing that all the time, then it's time to look within.
Yeah, there's a cost to that.
Yeah, it is, and that's accumulation, and accumulation ends in disease. So now and again, great, reach for that thing if it's going to help you, if it's going to bring you into a state of presence on a podcast or whatever it might be, just to use that to biohack your way into living a better life. But then, just noticing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's why, one of the biggest things that I teach and coach and have been living for years has been organic state change. Like changing how I change how I feel, just like through breath work, through movement, through using my voice, my body, through what I focus on, what I choose to believe in a certain moment. All of those things affect your biochemistry in the moment, like real time. The thing about those things is that it just takes a little bit more effort. Like a 15-minute breath session to create energy and aliveness is a lot longer than a cup of coffee. Or to dance for 30 minutes to just like get out of my head and de-stress takes a more effort than to smoke a joint. But the result is the same.
Yeah, you've just described two things which are innate and there's probably a technical word, but like self-orientated rather than external, like the cannabis. Both medicinal, coffee and cannabis, but then they are still something that's not produced from yourself. So you can those states you can get into through dance, through breath work, are actually coming from you, and they're free. Like the free things that we can, like I always say, health is about not adding anything new. It's like it's actually reducing the things you think you need.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. By the way, as you're speaking, I'm hearing this like your nice, soft, kinesthetic voice. We were talking like this guy's a podcaster. I was thinking about the listeners, and I'm like, Chris Geisler. Yeah.
I wonder if that has changed since the podcast.
Do you think it has?
It's not been intentional. I've not found my, through some sort of vocal tuning, my radio voice. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a nice radio voice. It's really soothing, I feel. I feel like I'm so high energy. Like I try to make meditations for clients that I have, and I'm like, calm the fuck down, Bret. Calm down, because no one wants to listen to a meditation where it's like, and then take a breath. So anyways, I find I'm so high energy, and it's been kind of difficult for me to at times feel confident in how high energy I am, because I sometimes feel like I need to be a more grounded masculine. And there's definitely value in bringing my energy down into my body and into my gut for sure. But I'm also like really happy and high energy person. And it's too much for some people. It's a lot for some people. Mm-hmm. Some people don't know how to handle all that energy. And then I sometimes, like I was telling you, being afraid of their judgment can sometimes dim my shine in order to facilitate a feeling of comfort for them, which is not even serving them ultimately. But it's definitely not serving me. And so that's been a big thing I've tried to do over the last years, and I still struggle with that, is learning to really feel safe in my shine and be seen in all my Bretness. Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Love that, man. So talk a little bit more about that. How have you navigated that? When were you first aware of it?
I think I was aware of what I just articulated maybe about 3-4 years ago, which to me is pretty recent. I think my journey with this sort of unapologetic self-expression started when I was about 16, 17. And I would be at a party, high school party. And I couldn't dance. I was so afraid to dance. I was like the guy that would go rather have a one-on-one conversation to the side, because I didn't want to have the attention, and I had so much shame around moving my body. But I remember there was one party, and I was like, why the fuck am I so afraid to just move my body? Like, why do I feel afraid, like scared, as if there's a fucking lion chasing me, to just move my body? And that was the first moment where I was like, something else is going on here. And that's what started to get me into this inquiry process of like my subconscious mind. Like, why is my body freezing up when consciously I want to dance? Why is my body starting to freeze up? And so when I was 17, I started to do, I was so afraid to speak in front of people, and had social anxiety and all sorts of stuff. So I would go on public buses and say, hey, everybody, and I would give a speech. Or I would go in front of a grocery store and just like force myself to sing for like 5 to 10 minutes or dance for 5 to 10 minutes. It was
and you were
so
17?
Scary. 17, 18, 19, that was like my life. And I did this for a few years, yeah.
With people, accountability, or was it just like your own?
Just me.
Wow.
No, just me. And I'm even like, I pulled my pants down in front of a restaurant and gave a speech. I have a video of it. I'll show you after.
I'll be okay.
Yeah, okay. I have a good view.
Is it from the front or behind? I don't know. What's worse?
Yeah, you're good.
Wow, okay. So you just put, as in you had your pants on, or were you naked?
No, I had underwear on. I had underwear on. But yeah, I'll show you a picture of my dick later. It'll be great.
I mean, I don't know how long you spent in prison after that. But
it was in Bali too, so.
So that was just a self... Like
just to face the fear of people's judgment of me, and like being comfortable in my shine, like having attention and being able to just say something authentic. And
you still doing this, or do you feel complete?
I don't need. I'm gonna do that shit anymore. I always say it's not required.
What are we in for?
What's that?
What are we in for on the podcast?
I don't know.
I don't know.
know.
Pushing those edges.
Yeah, dude. I think that's important. But
I think life's an experiment, right?
Yeah.
I think that's fucking epic.
Thank you.
And like at 17, I was doing the opposite probably.
What were you doing at 17?
Trying to fit in.
Yes.
Not trying to stand out.
Yes.
Not trying to push those edges or get out of my comfort zone.
Yes.
Like that didn't occur to me for a while. That it was actually, if I wanted to attain more, like within myself, then I have to do things that aren't comfortable. Like that, that makes all the sense.
Yes.
We can understand that.
Yes.
We live in the conceptual often, but we can conceive that it's like you have your comfort zone and your discomfort, and then in the middle your life kind of flows. But growth is what happens when you
Yes.
you aren't so uncomfortable that you go into those freeze, but you So
Yes.
how did you navigate that with like your window of tolerance
That's a
in those
genius question.
situations? Because you could have gone into some sort of, you know, response to, maybe it was trauma. I'd like to know or understand a bit more about what your perspective is and why those things were there.
Yeah.
And I think they're very common, aren't they, in public, especially dance and people just expressing themselves. But like, what was it, the root of that for you? Did you need to go there and need to understand the why? Or was it just like pushing the edge and finding your window, what you could tolerate, but would help you grow?
Such a good question. So I've thought through this question before because I realized at a certain point it was somewhat hurtful to myself to be doing all those challenges because I didn't have the internal dialogue and connection with the part of me that was really scared to be doing those things. It was more so I saw the fear as the enemy. I need to overcome it and be confident over top of the fear. Where later, as I studied IFS therapy and got trained as a therapist, I started to understand myself at a much deeper level. And then I was able to, if I were to go back, what I would do is, when that fear came up in the moment, I would pause and connect with the part of myself that was terrified to be rejected. And I would maybe have a dialogue or a moment to create safety in my nervous system. And maybe I would do it a bit slower, but I would at least have that inner connection where before it was just all head. And so by doing that, the part of me that was terrified was getting rejected and made wrong for being terrified. Where that part of me has really good reasons to be terrified based on the trauma that I've experienced. And so that was one switch, was like, I view it as bringing the masculine with the feminine. Before it was basically just like sort of dominating, somewhat unhealthy, I would say, version of the masculine. Unhealthy is subjective, but it wasn't a holistic, complete approach, in my opinion. It wasn't an integrated.
Dominating that part of you.
Yeah. It was like, I'm just going to do it. And there's value in force. But when I was able to bring in the feminine of like my emotional body and actually connect with myself, that's what I do now. Like before I go on stage to public speak for something or whatever it may be, or a podcast like this, if I felt nervous before a podcast, definitely this time around, I would slow down, take a few minutes with myself if I need, and actually have a moment where I can create a sort of healing or a sort of safety as opposed to try to overpower it.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge.
There's a phrase that I like to repeat. It makes sense that you feel this way. Like, no matter what the context, it makes...
Wow.
Context is everything. And if I had all the context, then it would make sense. It's just like
that.
how people are acting out, why people do the things they do, why people are on the street, whatever their circumstance. It makes sense given the circumstances in which they've lived, you know? Because we're all pretty fresh that come into this world, depending on your perspective around past life and stuff. But I think we're born, you know, pretty even playing field. But then our circumstances and environment, they shape us, right? And they develop these sides. Okay, so you mentioned trauma. So
what's your trauma?
What's your trauma?
Who hurt you?
Capital T.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share on that piece that's going to illuminate, like, allow me to get to know you more?
Yeah, you want the real. So I think that my big trauma was around men, my relationship with the masculine. It's the reason why I'm a men's coach now, the biggest reason by far. My dad's an amazing man, extraordinary dude, had so many great qualities and supported me so powerfully in my life in many ways. However, I was separated from him from age 6 to 19. I saw him maybe once a year during that time. And even still, when I say this, I can sometimes feel some grief coming up around that. And I think that when I was 6 years old, so I think, you know, when we're that age, our brains haven't developed yet to have a objective view of why dad's not there anymore. The safest thing to believe is that it was my fault. Because if I were to believe that he was unfit to take care of me, then that would be to admit I'm not safe and I'm going to die. And so it's safer to say it's my fault because at least I can change myself and maybe, you know, be worthy of his love. And so as a 6-year-old, I kind of developed that belief I didn't feel worthy of his love, and that's painful. And so I think that was just sort of a cascade effect where I was afraid to be who I was because I felt like who I was wasn't enough to be loved. So I was just trying to find who do I have to be loved? Who do you want me to be? Do I have to be funnier? I'll try to be funnier. Do I have to be good at sports? Okay, I'll get good at sports. Do I have to act confident even when I'm afraid? Okay, I'm going to act confident even when I'm afraid. who do I have to be lovable? And that was just kind of like the story of my life. If I really look at my life, I was always trying to fit in, like you were saying before. I was always trying to get that sense of validation, and I had no idea there was just this big hole in my heart from this. And I didn't realize this until after all those fear-facing challenges, what was actually causing all of my fear and my insecurity and my self-doubt and all those sorts of things. And it led me to, when I was 18 years old, that year, I had my boundaries crossed sexually by 3 men that were older than me that year. And that was the year if I look back at it, I was kind of looking for daddy, I think. And I was a part of that dynamic. I'm by no means a victim to that. It all happened in the same year, and I was just really searching for that validation of, like, I wanted guidance. I wanted a man to, like, show me the way. I wanted to have that pat on the head and him tell me that I'm proud of you kind of thing. And so it came out in all these unhealthy ways. And so all that to say, like, the approach of facing my fears that way was just more hurtful because I was unaware of everything I just told you at that time. And so you can imagine all of this fear and emotion and pain built up inside my body that I was just unaware of, and I was trying to conquer it and dominate it, but I was really just saying fuck you to it, when really what it needed was a big hug. And that big hug has allowed me to actually be unapologetically me today. And the Bret that you got to meet at Medicine Festival, who's smiling and happy and connecting with people, that's because I've liberated all that shame out, not all of it potentially, I don't know, but I've liberated a lot of that shame out of my body. I no longer believe I'm unworthy of love. I know I'm lovable, and that's why I'm able to shine like I can today. So
thank you, man.
Yeah,
I just want to create some space to just
it's a lot.
honor that, yeah, man, and the curiosity and the challenge that takes is huge, and honoring you for that. That's what I saw. That's what I saw. Someone that wasn't trying to. You were trying to bring what you know you have to bring, rather than take something to fill something.
Yes.
And I noticed often it can be a slight judgment, but I think we can all sense into other people's experience of maybe when people don't feel enough as they are and they're not okay on their own. And what tends to happen when that's the case, if someone's not okay as they are, you can notice them compromising on their own needs or their own self. And in the short exchange that we had, I was like, there's something here, like there's something.
We were vibing.
Yeah, it was super brief, but there was just this this power that I saw in your eyes and presence and just curiosity. And like you're 24, like, wow, like you mentioned then about you looking for someone to see you. How important do you think that is in life for a young person, a man, to have someone reflect to them? I often think about this because admittedly I didn't have that either.
Yes.
And I was searching for that, and it felt like I wasn't really aware of what I was doing, but I was searching for someone to at least like just take me under their wing a little bit.
Yes.
Like, do you think that's a natural?
Absolutely, it's natural. In Robert Bly's book Iron John, in that book there's a quote that jumped at me when I read it. He's like, if you're not being admired by an older man, you're wounded. And I found that to be very, very true. And so whenever, even to this day, if I respect an older man and he compliments me, that compliment means more than from almost anybody else. And I think it's just this
Ancient.
I think there's something ancient to it. Yeah. I don't know if there's like mythology or science behind this. However, I just I can speak from my own experience, and I can say that it deeply, deeply touches me. And I've also found in reverse. Now I'm so grateful to have gone through all of that. Despite the pain of it, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change my dad. He's an amazing, amazing man. And by the way, if you hear the story of his father and what he went through, I'm not sure I'd be any different than he was, you know? So, and now I get to be a mentor for so many young men, and even some men that are older than me biologically. I get to be a mentor for them. And I've found one of my gifts is seeing people. I'm really connected to people, and I can see things that sometimes they can't even see, and I celebrate them for it. And so I mean, it's just like the hero's journey. I get to give the gift that I was wounded in, and it creates such a deep sense of meaning for me. And I wouldn't trade any of it for the world, because I wouldn't have that meaning, And that's what I think is so beautiful about this journey, and so beautiful about the coaching community and spirituality. Some people, like we were talking about before, they're posers. They're not actually connected to the work. They're doing it because they want the status or the life or something. But there's people like you and I feel the same with you. We really care. There's really that genuinity there, and that's a sacred gem.
Yeah, people sometimes ask what your strength is, and I'm like, I fucking care a lot.
Yes.
And it feels like maybe sometimes disingenuous of like, is that the thing? And I'm like, yeah, like I'm pretty sure I know I care, like a lot, and I'm the same person here as I am wherever else. And I think that congruence of that's like the foundation. Are you the same person on camera as you are off?
Yes.
And I like to think I am.
Yes, I've only met you a few times, but I've found that to be my experience, for sure. I'm curious. You said, "Wow, I think I am caring. Like I am caring." I found a similar process with myself where I was like, kind of doubting my gift. I think that's a common thing that we can do because we haven't been seen in it, we haven't been admired in it. So there's almost like this doubt or like this uncertainty. Is this really a gift? And so what's that process been like for you to kind of claim that gift and own it?
I like to check in always on the integrity that I have. Like I like to do some stock checks of like, okay, am I actually caring? And I think I like to keep doing that. Sometimes it feels really healthy. Other times it tiptoes into, I'm actually just like in my head and I'm not fully owning the gift or the thing that I want to do. Because I'm like, I want to be congruent in what I say and what I do. And I want that to be matched. So when I think about something like that, I care. Like I know I do, but maybe there's some times where that isn't actually acted upon. So again, it's not black and white. Like sometimes, and care about myself, care about others. I think that's the conversation that I have also. I think with something like that around care, I think it's just, as I could bring it down into a more succinct thing, because I think it is a little bit subjective. People will be like, well, what do you care about? It's like trust. Okay, do you trust yourself? It depends on the context. But to answer your question around the journey of that, it's always been true for me, around like caring about other people. Like it's just like I live my life with other people, and they're a testament to my life, and I only know myself through others. So caring about them is also caring about myself, and it makes sense to me to see other people as an extension of me, because they are not really separate. Like they impact who I am, I impact who they are. So the care is just more intentionality of how I want to live. So how integral I want to be with my life.
Yes.
So I think there's a myriad of things going on, but it's like, what lifestyle do I want to have, and how much care do I want to put into it? How much carefulness do I want to,
Carefulness. Yeah, I'm hearing like an intentionality, a carefulness.
Yeah.
Yes. When does that care? I'm a podcast. This is a great segue.
Let's do it.
When
you say that, we're not leaning into the mic. You're like,
okay. When has that care?
You can move it if you want.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's great.
Like,
oh, is it?
Into your face, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great.
Confronting.
When does that? I mean, yeah. When does that care? Has that care ever? I think we talked about this before, but has that care ever like gone too far to the extreme of care in an intimate relationship? You like over put yourself in the other person's world and you lose yourself in that process. Has that occurred for you?
I think what I said to you before the podcast is like, how can you be with another without losing yourself?
Yes, without losing
I think
yourself.
this is the dance.
Yeah.
I think, yes, there's definitely been times
where
I've given too much, or I've lost sense of myself to try and maintain the third leg of a relationship, because there's you, there's me, and there's the us. And sometimes I'm so concentrated on the us that I lose myself, and that's codependency, and that's kind of that is unhealthy.
Yeah.
So I think that's just the dance, that to be wise is really like an act of love, but also like experience. And I think you have to do that. You have to overstretch yourself. So Jordan Peterson is just like, use your 20s to find all your edges, go to your extremes, stay up late, have early mornings, whatever it might be. It's be with other people and like overstretch yourself. Do it. Just go there.
Yeah.
Without the shame or judgment, but like notice how that feels, and then come back and notice where you can still be with yourself but not lose yourself.
Yes.
In others. So yeah, I mean, specific examples don't really come to me at the moment, but it is that dance. I think we're all in that. Yeah, you said something about well, the thing I wanted to touch upon actually was they're the things you've overcome, and seemingly now are Dr. DeMartini. Do you know him? Dr. John?
Oh, I've heard of him. No, I don't know.
John DeMartini. So he's like this world like expert coach, but he does a lot of talks, and he's mainly in the corporate world, but like all the spiritual people who would call themselves spiritual like really respect him. Okay. Even though he's very like straight,
very
down
logical,
the line.
left brain.
But he's just phenomenal. He says your biggest voids become your greatest values. So your voids in life, if you alchemize them, they can also be your biggest like demons, the voids in your life. But they can. We then value what we didn't have. If you it is your gift, your superpower. It's your kryptonite, but also your superpower. So for you, that's the thing you've alchemized, seemingly.
Great point.
But then what are the things you're still figuring out? That's what I want to know. And what are the things you want to go there with around the things you're still, really pushing through?
I love that. Thank you for the question. And it makes me reflect on how authenticity is one of my core values. And I was so inauthentic for so long because I didn't feel enough to be myself, like I was saying. It just really helped me reflect on how, wow, that is such a core value of mine with people, in my relationships, with myself, with what I do in my work. Like, it has to feel true to me. And like integrity is something like authenticity, truth. So it's interesting to see how the truth of that statement, how the biggest void can become our biggest value. But as far as what I'm still struggling with,
you said struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I much prefer to talk about my accomplishments when cameras are on, but I know it's important to share these. What am I still struggling with? Well, what's present, at least for me right now, is just about a week ago I got into a pretty tough argument with a friend, and I had this rage come up, and it's so opposite to who I believe I am and how I feel myself to be. And I wasn't super rageful in the moment, but I was very dominating and hurtful with my words and totally cut off from my heart and just not, and I part of me kind of hates that. I definitely don't like the feeling of it, but, and then I read the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover again, like I told you, actually in part because of this. And I wanted to take a look at my shadows, because this book's really good for showing shadows. And in the book, they talk about one of the shadow poles of the wounded warrior is the sadist, the sadistic warrior, who basically is cut off from his heart, who is overly controlling and dominating, and can go into these outbursts on other people where he's cut off from his heart. And I was like, wow, that's me. And really, beneath the surface, he's covering up insecurity and the cowardice that he felt. And in this particular conversation, there were two people talking about something, and I had a point that was very disagreeable with them, a truth of mine I felt in the moment that was very disagreeable with theirs, but I felt too much of a cowardice to share it. I didn't want to like disrupt the conversation, and so I had this build up kind of going on of me feeling sort of weak and powerless to not assert my opinion, and then as opposed to like being honest with them and being vulnerable, I feel insecure right now, I feel weak and powerless. I tried to dominate this person and like hurt them and like prove that I was, right, and defend myself. It was very painful, and there was a big disconnection for us both still to this day, like even a week later. We've worked with it a bit, but So that was something that came up, and it was very humbling for me, because listen, I'm a coach, and I help men work through this sort of stuff. And I was very hard on myself for how I felt very embarrassed after that for the next day for reacting so much, because it was just so like it's just such a, if you think of like an unconscious egoic reaction, that's what it was, like full on.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. So could you walk us through at the time? So you were not conscious of the maybe suppressing of your truth, which was the vulnerability or the insecurity that was perhaps playing out.
Yeah.
So you weren't conscious of that.
I was slightly conscious of it, but there was such a fight or flight response happening at that point. I didn't take the decision to leave the room, which I should have. I should have been like, okay, I'm very dysregulated right now. I got to go for a walk or something. I stayed there, and then the pattern kept increasing in intensity. And it's like if you got a teapot boiling on the stove, at some point it's got to go. And so I guess there was so much buildup, and I was going through a lot at that time too, and very ungrounded and stressed and dysregulated. And in moments of stress, we go back to our deepest, shadows and patterns, right? So
yeah, that would then project onto others.
Yep. And I would just full vomit projected. projectile projection. Yeah.
Okay, so the thing happened.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how did you meet that after? What was the reconciliation?
So I met it after really awesomely. I instantly went to my room and just laid down for like 45 minutes and just let all the chemicals pass and just process what just happened. And felt the rage surge through my body for another like 10 minutes. There was so much rage that came up. And it's probably the emotion I've least accepted in myself and least feel comfortable in is rage, anger. And so process that, and then just went through an inquiry with myself for like, why did I do this?
How did you process that?
Laid down, felt the feelings in my body, placed my hand on my heart. When I noticed my inner critic judge me for that, I allowed that inner critic to be there as well, and acknowledge him, and felt the pain that he felt, and felt the regret, felt the embarrassment. I allowed myself to feel that, like wishing I could have acted differently but didn't. And then I also allowed myself to feel compassion, acknowledging that I am a human. I just allowed myself to feel all of that. And then after a little bit of that, I felt a little bit more space. But honestly, my heart was tender for like 2 days. So yeah, I just took some time to, journal, go for walks, and have some dialogue with this person a little bit. Just have some honest conversations, sharing my needs, what was going on in that moment. And, they shared their needs and how it really hurt them and impacted them, which was, again, tough to hear. But honestly, I think the point where I started to really heal, even though now, in some way now, I don't regret it. If I could go back, obviously, yes, I would not do that. However, I don't regret it, and I genuinely feel really grateful for it, because it did a couple things for me, like these triggers really do. For anyone listening, triggers are not bad things. They actually can be extraordinarily helpful to help us evolve. The first thing is that it slowed me way down and got me connected to my body. I've been doing this group launch for my community. I've been so focused and doing stuff. All this pain got me to slow down and look at myself. The second thing it did was it really humbled me. I felt a big humbling experience. And for whatever reason, I just felt, after that, I was so much more in my heart. I guess I just saw my flaws and my fallibility so clearly that I felt so much more comfortable being my authentic self, and so less like I needed to prove anything or be something. So actually touching that shadow really helped me accept that shadow, and so therefore accepting more of me. And so I felt more like myself and more connected to myself in the last 4 days since processing it for a few days. And so and I genuinely feel grateful, and I learn more about myself, and I just feel more connected. So that, I think, is what you were speaking of, is the alchemy of some of these experiences. And do I wish I didn't do it? For sure. Am I going to try to be way better next time? Yes. However, I feel really grateful for it, and I'm not going to sit in this regret. I'm going to sit in compassion and enjoy the lesson that I got, enjoy the humility that I feel, and kind of just take the next step. That was my process generally.
What's the process around reconciliation with this person? Do you have like a...
It's a great question.
Yeah. What did you own? I I can share, like, I guess
Please, you share
a recipe that I do my best to be honest about all the judgments I'm aware of how I'm judging someone else to be. And sometimes that is fucking messy and really not nice.
Yeah.
But I also need to know that they know and are aware that it's not them, it's not about them. And if something does touch them about what I say, then maybe there's truth to it.
Yeah.
But it's just my lens and my owning of judgments that I might have. I recently said to someone I was working with that I was like, I'm judging that you are trying to take things from me, and that you're just trying to use me for your own gain. I don't need you to respond. I just really wanted to say that because I'm feeling so insecure about how this dynamic's playing out, and I was like, fuck, I didn't feel good to say. I didn't want to say that. And then I try and save them from feeling any pain or trying to like come back with no, it's not the case, that's not true. I actually just would rather you just hear it and we don't say anything about it for a few days and then see if we do want to after that. That's working for me at the moment.
Yes.
Just to try and like just make the implicit explicit and just get out everything that's in my head.
Yes.
And it's not about you, it's actually way more about me than it's about you.
Yes.
There's truth to it, yeah, speak to it, but
sure,
you don't need to like provide me with any context.
Yes.
That's gonna like try to reassure me.
Yes.
But I'm also like just wanting to be with that I feel.
It brings up an interesting point that I'm curious to dive into more with you, is the idea of 100% responsibility. And like when you say like it's more about me than you, the first thought that I had is that it's 100% about you. But then I question that. I'm like, well, is that really true? Because
is it all projection?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that.
But
yeah.
No, you go.
I don't know if it is like the charges that we have. I've got a charge with you. You were late. This means you're this person. Like you have integrity. Whatever it means. Whatever box I put you in.
Yeah.
I don't have full context for you, or really, actually, do I ever really know you? Do you know yourself? Do you know where this is coming from?
Yes.
Do you know why this is playing out?
Yes.
Maybe you don't even know, and maybe you think you know, and then later you realise you didn't know, and now you do, and it's like,
yeah, totally.
like maybe I'll just take full ownership for
totally,
and speak from I as much as possible. Rather than speaking from you and trying to fill in your gaps and your blanks and tell you what your experience is.
Yes.
It's rather like, this is how it feels.
Yes.
And just, these are the assumptions and judgments that I've got. And that's it. I don't know what else to do.
I think that, I think that's enough. And I think a lot of people can relate to this that are watching. I've heard this so many times that some people, like, they want to be in relationship with people who, like, they wish their partner could take more responsibility. And I think if you're really in the game of 100% responsibility, you have to be okay that the person doesn't reciprocate. You have to be okay that even though you took full responsibility, they still may blame you or project onto you. And you just have to accept that that's not about you as well. It's if I'm 100% me, then you're 100% you.
Yeah.
You know?
Does it work both ways?
It does work. Yeah, it works both ways, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, it's funny. It's so funny, dude. You know the Mike Tyson quote? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. That's me with like nonviolent communication. It's like I got all the words, I know how to say it, I'm gonna observe, not interpret. I'm gonna honor my feelings and sense your needs, and I'm gonna, just do this perfectly. Then you say that one fucking thing that just triggers me. Limbic hijack happens, all my linguistic ability is gone, and I'm just, So that's what I feel like for me is the biggest work, is learn to regulate myself, my nervous system in those moments. Because I know how to communicate well. I know how to honor my needs and feelings and sense yours. And I understand human psychology. But it's just when my own nervous system starts to work against me, so to speak, when I get into a fight or flight response, that's when communication goes to shit.
Yes, great. I mean, the judgments are a consequence of having a nervous system. Because you're just constantly just trying to stay safe or in connection, remain in connection or protection.
Yes.
I'd rather be in connection than protection, but it's like it's kind of the same thing in a way.
Yes.
The phrase, my friend Jeff Lester, he brought this into I guess a training that he was running for Nat Life training. He does a lot of ceremony and space holding, and he talks about the power of words, of course, spellings, and he talks about that I've got to go to the shops, and changing it to I get to. And
Yes.
it's just low hanging fruit. It changes so much of like, I've got to go pick this person up. No, I get to go pick them up.
1,000%.
It's like a fucking opportunity then.
I have to meditate in the morning, or I have to go, do this sales call or something.
Yeah.
I get to. And honestly, I think for most of us, I mean, dude, let's be real. We're men. We're white. We live in a first world country in the 21st century. Like, there's, like, for us to be like, oh my God, I have to, that's so ridiculous to me. And I say this in part because I grew up in a middle class household, food on the table. I played sports. Like, for me, like, there's Wi-Fi, there's free information. Like, this is unheard of throughout history. Like, we have the best of the best of the best of the best of the best opportunity from all those things I just mentioned. And so for me to say I have to is actually pretty audacious.
Disrespectful.
Yeah, you can see it as disrespectful. And I think of that a lot. It's just like just how lucky I am.
What book did you read to arrive there?
No book, honestly. No book. Just like looking around. I mean, I think just it's come with age. It's come with age. It's come with age. I also grew up entitled, which I think is part of how I realized this, because I actually had people like Gary Vaynerchuk. He's big on entitlement, and he taught me when I was 18. He started showing me how I was entitled. And then from then on, I started actually really pushing myself and not taking handouts, because I grew up with a mom who loved me so much. She wanted to pack my lunch, and she wanted to, give me so much. And so there's an entitlement that can get very easily created. Plus, I'm a white man, so just natural, unconscious entitlement, not having to like have as much struggle as, say, a Hispanic or black woman or a trans woman or something like this. I don't know. And so I love reminding myself of that, one, because it feels good, because it's truthful. Like, it just resonates as truth every time I say it. Like, it's so lucky to be that. Just the opportunity of that, the advantages of that.
It is, yeah. For me, it's about opportunity.
Yes. Yeah. And then I like saying it because I like reminding people of it, because it's and I work with a lot of men that are like me, that are just his advantage.
Gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Gratitude is his pathway to presence, to love, to just being here a bit more. And yeah, what do you think that symptom is then? The symptom of, I've got to do this, have to do that. Because it's a symptom of something.
What's the symptom of that, being in that sort of mindset?
I'd say that's the symptom. Being in that mindset, becoming kind of stuck, stagnant, just like feeling like life's...
You're saying, what's that caused by?
Yeah.
That's a good question. What do you think?
I'm asking you.
No, what do you think? I mean, I can answer if you want. Do you have an answer that's present?
Oh, loads.
Yeah, I need to think about it. What do you think?
I'd say stress response. It's like a stress response. That's a good one. So the outcome is that life's happening to you.
Yes.
Everything's something to react to, and every like the tax man's out to get me. This is like my dad's debate. Everyone's kind of on top of you. It depends on your worldview, and I think it's the myths that we tell ourselves. Why are we here? Comes back to like, why do you think you're here on this planet? Yes. And I think a common myth is that the world's just out to get us. And it feeds into the evolution that it's competition.
Dog eat dog world.
Yeah, it's a dog eat dog. Dog eat dog. And that's in Uncivilized to Death. Chris Ryan, who wrote Sex at Dawn. No, I haven't. Oh yeah, I've heard of that. He talks about dog eat dog world. It's quite funny. It's a great chapter. Because he always thought that phrase was doggy dog, not doggy dog.
That's so funny.
And he has this whole spiel about it. Anyway, so I think it comes down to the word. Is life happening for you or to you? I don't fucking know, but I know which one benefits me more. And I know it's a biohack to actually see life as an opportunity, to see life in that way. Genius. And I think it feeds into that. It's like the, God, what's it? Like there was loads of science that came out around like how we evolved to be and what life is about. And if you think life is a competition then it's going to be quite stressful, actually.
Yes.
And especially wired in the West in that way, around everything's quite individualistic and there's no collective understanding or attunement, then it can be this kind of individualistic, isolative process that we can go through without even any of the circumstantial trauma of like, I'm a bad person, I don't deserve good things. Forget that. It's I can feel into people's experience around how lonely, isolated they can feel in a moment that would make you just not feel that life is for you and happening for you and through you as well.
Yes. I think I agree with all of that. I think that actually is the core cause. I think it's the cause of a lot of our suffering, is being disconnected with who we are. If I just believe I'm, like Alan Watts said, an ego encapsulated meat sack or something like this. If that's what I believe I am, then it's very easy to feel threatened by the external world.
Yeah.
You know, the apparent external world. And I second everything you're saying. I just think ultimately, like, I think once a person gets to the point when they realize that their beliefs were given to them and that you can shift your beliefs, once a person really gets to that point where they understand they can create their reality, literally, with their words, with their thoughts, then I think you stop being a victim entirely. And then every moment that comes up, okay, what am I believing here that's causing this suffering? What am I believing here that's causing this emotional state? And when you really get with that, then you kind of just take all the power back, and then you kind of have that C-word choice. Where trauma, what it does is it takes away that C-word choice. When we're so enmeshed in those patterns, it doesn't feel like we have a choice often. And I used to feel this when I was addicted to food. I wouldn't be able to stop myself from binge eating. Even if I wanted to consciously, some part of me couldn't stop. It didn't have that C-word choice. But realizing this and regulating our nervous systems gives us more of that C-word choice. So we're out of the stress response, and we're in a place where we actually have access to some of that choice. So I think that's really good that you touched on the stress response, because as long as we're in survival, the more meshed we are, blended with those survival patterns, the less of that C-word choice we have.
Yes, and we're looking for that black and white thinking, which is a consequence of that. Do you take full ownership for everything?
Yeah, I try to. I definitely try to, yeah, fuck yeah. And as soon as, I think we all are little victims at times, like for moments, but I try pretty damn hard to catch myself whenever I do, because I'm just shooting myself in the foot if I pretend to be a victim. You?
Yes, Louis Blake, you might have met him at Medicine. He was pottering around. He said on the podcast, he was like, if an asteroid hits the Earth, you know this one. He's like, I can take fucking ownership for that, because I know where the investment goes into seeking the solar system and seeing what's in the air. I'm not paying any money to that. Like, I can be propping that industry up a little bit more by sending them some money or whatever it is. I can own that I'm not doing enough.
I love that example.
And I was just like, fuck yeah. There's not much that I can't take some ownership for.
Yes.
It depends on how resourced you are, and I am in a given moment, to want to accept full radical responsibility for these things.
Yes.
So I think it's being mindful of when you choose to take ownership of certain things.
No, I agree. I just if I think about what you're saying, I think a thread that I want to pull for the listeners right now who want to start taking more ownership in their life is, like, really, it's something that needs to be pursued, I think, because the survival patterns don't want to take responsibility. It's easier to be a victim in that way. It has to be a choice. Like, it has to be something pursued. I have to sometimes really look for the reason for how I can take responsibility, because in a survival pattern, that reason isn't just going to pop up, because the way that you think is the way that you feel in that moment. Like Joe Dispenza says, you can't think greater than how you feel, at least typically in a habitual pattern. Of course we can in a moment, but in a habitual pattern we can't. So we have to really search for the reason why, how could I have done something different? If it's true that I'm fully responsible for my life, then what could I have done? And like that process of asking questions, of thinking, most people don't think, they just recycle thoughts. It's not thinking. Thinking is asking questions. And so it takes effort to do that. It takes effort to step outside the normal pattern of thought. And that's what I think is required for something like this. is to pursue, ask questions. Well, how could I be responsible? Why do I feel like this? What would I have to believe to feel like this or to have made that choice, etc.?
Let's dive into that a little bit more. So
Which part? Yeah.
All of it. It's great.
Oh.
It's great.
Oh, wow.
So, because I love it, I'm thinking into what's going to allow you to do that more efficiently or better. What tools do you bring in to allow you to go outside of it's just the neural pathways that
totally.
It's true. Like a lot of people can be, and I can be very one-dimensional in thinking, and I have go-tos, and I'll just recycle the same stuff. And yeah, I've been in those years of my life where I'm not seemingly making any progress because I'm just stuck in thought loops and
stuck
patterns.
in the loops.
So, what's helped you the most in your life to really think better, think more clearly, and more creatively?
I think studying is really big for that. Just getting other people's thoughts. Sometimes it's just getting some fresh perspectives from people, getting out of my thought loops. I think understanding the nervous system, your nervous system's number one priority is to survive, then it's to avoid pain, then it's to conserve energy, and then only last, if those three are met, to get some pleasure. So we're not wired to go straight to pleasure right away. And if conserve energy is in front of that, conserving energy is staying in the same thought patterns. Stepping outside of that thought pattern takes energy.
Yeah.
And so your nervous system is literally wired to not think positive thoughts before the negative habitual ones. And so that's what I'm saying when understanding that helps me really in that moment not think that my thoughts are true. It's not supposed to feel positive or comfortable or fluffy. I have to go pursue that. I have to go create that. That's what I'm really trying to communicate here. I think that really helps. And another way to do that I do, is I use my body very actively when I'm doing these sorts of processes. So if I'm I won't just say what could I have done differently? How would I have responded differently? I'm what could I have done? What could be true? That's how I really use my body like that. Sometimes I'll go for a walk, and that also helps shake off the negative thought patterns, and the survival response starts to shift my nervous system, my state a little bit. And then in that state, I'm more available to think better thoughts. Because if I'm fully blended with a pattern and I'm just sitting on a couch or in a meditation, that shit could just go on for ages. So I like to get really active when I'm doing these processes because it builds up some energy. And now my nervous system isn't as concerned with conserving energy anymore. It now has some energy available to create, like Joe Dispenza says. But it's hard to create when there's no energy available, and there's no energy available because your nervous system's stuck in these low energy states. So moving the body helps shift that, create some more energy that we can start to think some better thoughts with.
Do you do that intuitively now?
Yeah, it's pretty intuitive now.
I was doing this yesterday. I came into Hammersmith, it's roundabout in London. It's crazy.
Yes.
Stuff's flying everywhere. People are shouting. It's it's busy. And I get into the building, the studio, and I just started shaking. And I was just I was just coming back into my body, being very aware of what had just taken place. It felt like a war zone. And I've just come from the woods for 4 days.
Oh wow, yeah.
At the men's retreat,
it's a lot of stimulus.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm I don't even know if I could do this, and I'm just weaving and dipping. It feels like I'm at war. My body feels at war. It's madness. And then I get in and I'm just shaking it out, and it feels that's allowing me to now step into this new environment and not kind of carry that stagnant response. It
makes sense to me because you're really in tune with your body, I've noticed. Have you noticed that those intuitive moments, because that's a form of self-care, of being aware of a sensation, uncomfortable, not feeling something's a bit off, I don't feel that great, and then doing something to care for that, to tend to that challenge in that moment, self-care. Have you found, I would love to hear how your connection with your body, as you've done more practice to deepen that, has connected to your self-care and your level of love or motherly nurturing energy that you feel with yourself?
Yeah, I think what comes up is I need to first know that I'm worth it. Really know that it's worth. I think there's a big piece I don't hear many people talk about, but do you actually feel like you deserve to feel good? Do I feel like I deserve
I hear this all the time.
You do?
Yeah. They don't feel they
No.
deserve it. Yeah.
And it's just like, well, that's the baseline of, if anything's going to be sustainable, it needs to be welcome. It needs to be felt. Do I feel good enough to deserve love? Do I feel good enough to deserve freedom, whatever it might be? And then from that place, if I'm like really nurturing that side of me, then I can start doing the practices, and then I can develop more sensitivity to then feel into my experience a bit more. And like, dance is really, dance has helped that, like, to really like be in my body. Like when I guide people through ecstatic dance, and I'm like, this is it. This is the biggest thing that, this is the biggest embodiment practice, really, to just get out of the head and into the body. Like the longest path you'll ever take is out of the head into the body. And that for me is about feeling. It's about intuition. It's about flow and expression, and just like stagnant thoughts, stagnant body. Like the two just like, it's the mind body loop connection. So when I'm in my body and I'm dancing, and this is happening more and more, and the journey that I can go on when I think I can dance, or like, no, like there's so much there. There's so much there to explore. And to just keep showing up for like that practice has been enough for me to just develop more sensitivity in my body. And I think sensitivity also gets connotations of kind of weakness, or not being strong, but like, it's not an emotional fragility. It's sensitivity in actually like being in the woods for 4 days, like the immersive regulation of that, of like being in the woods and just being surrounded by life, but being so like dropped in. It feels like I've just dropped in completely. Like I'd love to hear about your experience with men as well. We can like retreats, and we can go into that. But like this one for me was all about being really fully immersed, and what are the results of that? What level of depth can we go in conversations as a byproduct of feeling surrounded by natural life, or like the woods, or just vibrancy, vitality, like life. It's not like straight lines and kind of what feels like concrete.
1,000%.
You know? Yeah. Does that answer it? Anything else you want to add?
No, absolutely. I do have another provocative question I'd like to ask you. I want to talk about developing self-worth. I know that's going to be valuable for some of the men that are listening right now, and I really want to touch on that and pause on that for another couple minutes. What are some ways that you've developed a sense of worth within yourself to really feel that sense of I feel worthy? Like really specific. What are some specific practical things that you've done or do, or perhaps even a couple moments where you had a realization that helped you truly feel worthy, not think you're worthy, but truly feel a sense of worth?
I think when I feel self-worth, self-love, it makes a lot of sense for me to feel into acceptance before any of that. So like, what do and don't I accept about the way in which I'm being, or even just my body? I had an experience on psychedelic mushrooms around the shame that I was carrying from my body. And maybe you can start there with the physical, of like, what don't I accept? What do I think's unlovable? What do I think needs to be different? And is there like, can I just tap into more radical acceptance of this is how I am and this is how I'm showing up today? That's a baseline of what's made more sense of like self-love. It means different things to different people. Like I think self-acceptance can be the precursor to it. So accepting my body, I had shame around my body. I didn't feel like I fit in, or like this is cultural, but it's also like person to person. So there was a big piece on that I've definitely sat with and journeyed with, and just sent love to like parts of my body, and like it might not even be mine. Also, I think just recognizing that it might be just carried through the generations of how people lived their lives and things people didn't accept about themselves.
No, go.
Yeah. And then how that's been passed down to me, and I've inherited that stress or that insecurity.
Yes.
Insecurity has been a huge thing that I've recognized, that I was so self-aware how I would be, how I would hold myself, how I'd speak,
Yes.
or how I would just be in a room. I was so aware of myself, it actually crept into being really insecure.
I understand.
Like, but because I wanted to reflect and I wanted to grow, be better, so I would reflect and really be self-aware. But I think there's a fine line between self-awareness and kind of insecurity, but there's another word. But yeah, I do want to keep tuning back into the question of self-worth. And is there any like tangible examples of the moments where I've just felt like complete acceptance of who I am, where I'm at? I think the love, I was always looking, when anyone would reflect that they love me, I would always look for something that I've done or achieved, common, because my love was dependent, like how I received love. And that can be sometimes the first thing that is a reference to like maybe self-love. So like how I received love was when I did something. It changed when it wasn't the same. If I'd achieved something in school, if I'd achieved like a gold medal, whatever it might be, it altered. Like I would receive more. So therefore
from your parents.
From parents and like elders. And when love would be taken away when I did something that was judged. Like if I was angry, if I was acting out violently or whatever it might be, it was taken away. So that's the kind of marker of like actually how I thought, reflection of me, how I would love myself. So that conversation's always been there. And I think I'm still journeying with it, really, ultimately. I wouldn't say I've got it figured out. There's like, It's the biggest piece, because everyone says, and I say, can you really love someone else unless you truly love yourself? But again, I'm not looking for like the black and white. I love myself. I can be with myself. I used to have a real fear of being alone. Do I love myself if I fear being alone? I don't know the answer to that, but I know it was really unhealthy because I was always reaching for someone else to. When I was on my own, I always have like a real story around what it meant. But we're social creatures. I don't think we're meant to be alone. But then there's so much to gain from that. Like there's intentional isolation versus loneliness. They're very different. And the hero's journey, I think it's time spent alone is important, right? It's like going into the cave. But yeah. And what landed the most, I guess.
Beautiful. I mean, there's a lot there. Thank you for sharing that. I sense some emotion come up around this for your present journey, going through this. Thank you for sharing that. There's so much with the concept of self-worth. I think there's even an error in the question that I asked, as if it was something that isn't already there. Like, how do you develop self-worth?
Sure, it's an innate state. I think it's your natural state. So there's a quote that I've got on the back of a t-shirt that says, don't go looking for love, remove everything that's blocking it.
That's exactly it. That's it. That's why I think your initial thing that you said about self-acceptance is a great first step. Is like, well, how am I not accepting myself? What's taking me away from love? A great exercise that I would challenge anyone to do is to like be like that really positive person and look in the mirror and say, I love you, I love you, I love you, and do that mirror exercise and pause and notice what comes up in your body. Pause and see if there's a part of you that says you're an idiot or you're ugly, or when you try to do that, notice the resistance to actually feeling it. Start with those thoughts.
There's a practice that I heard about in the morning is you brush your teeth with your left hand or your non-dominant hand and tell yourself you love you. And it does something to the brain, or because you're already more present because you're less in the habitual. And then you tell yourself, you rewire that, I love me, I love myself, I love myself.
Oh, that's really great.
I
like that.
Experiment with that maybe. But yeah, it's true, man. And I mean, how many times in my life that I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without feeling like uncomfortable.
Me too. That's a really confronting one, is actually getting up and close with yourself in the mirror, for sure.
I brought that in on the retreat.
Did you? You had a mirror out there in the woods?
I think I've had many.
Oh, cool.
And just going up to
I
the
love
mirror.
that.
Well, it was through dance. We had a practice about One level was blindfolded. One level was going into a mirror and dancing with yourself.
That's an edge for a lot of men. That is a big fucking edge for a lot of men.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm not selling it, am I?
What's that?
I'm not selling it.
I mean, yeah, some of the men are like, yeah, I want to face my edge, but I think there's also space to sell people what they want and give them what they need as well.
I think there's a lot around like, yes, maybe I could do it, but then being seen doing it is another fucking level.
Totally. Yeah. It's an extra edge. I'm a big believer in practice in private so that you can do it in public. Like,
what's the quote? Practice in private what you would... There's a quote around it.
Is there?
Yeah.
I think it's a different quote than what I'm thinking. What do you know what it is? Do you know the essence of it? It sounds interesting.
It's something around practice in private. What you practice in private is what you
get rewarded for in public.
That's the one.
Oh, that is the same quote I was thinking of then. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. And so like dancing a bunch in private for me, I can easily dance in public with people. I've just done it so many times. I think confidence to be seen oftentimes just comes from repetition or practice. How many reps have you put in with whatever the skill is, whether it's public speaking or playing guitar or whatever you want to do on stage or in public. If you're really, really good at it, if you just practice it so many times, it's way harder to feel insecure. And that's actually one thing I found to be great to build this self-worth that we're talking about, is actually following through on commitments to oneself. Building that reputation with yourself. Self-esteem is the esteem you have for yourself, what you do when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
So like committing to like doing this health practice or this spiritual practice and then actually showing up for it, I found has been instrumental to help me build a sense of self-esteem. And I know but then I feel some resistance even to share that, because then it almost is saying like, well, my worth is based on what I do, and that can be some really painful conditioning for some people. So I think there's that, like show up for yourself commitments. Otherwise it's hard to love yourself when you keep making big goals and keep failing with yourself, disappointing yourself. It's very hard to have that sense. But then I think there's also room for what we talked about of really just slowing down and connecting with the body and reminding yourself of the truth that you already are worth it. And I've just found the repetition of connecting with that, healing my inner child, removing the blocks, that sense of worth is a very natural feeling, actually. And I'm not sure, I think the first time I deeply, deeply felt it in my body, or one of them, was through a hypnotherapy session where I went back to the first memory I had of where I felt really like punished for doing something. And then I released the emotion of shame from that little boy's body, and I felt it and I saw it. And then we put back in, well, who would you be without all that belief and emotion? And it was just this beautiful flow of energy that came through me. And it was just this love and freedom, and I was happy, and there was not even a thought in my mind that I could not be worthy. It seemed ridiculous. And then that's one thing I like about psychedelics or these deep experiences, they can tap us into feelings that we can then take later on. Like it's like having that somatic, you can touch it somatically, help you re-access it later.
Absolutely.
And that's what that moment was for me with worth. And now for me, I could literally close my eyes and within seconds I could tap into the sense of worth, of gratitude, of love. And that's one thing I love to share with people, is emotions are trainable. You just got to build the pathways to get there. And I've practiced every single morning for 8 years. The first thing I've done has been training my emotional states, my mental motion. Every single day but like 98% of my days.
So talk for us your morning practice.
My morning practice, it's changed over the years. I do morning practices based on what season of life I'm in. So if I'm really in a season where I need to be hyper productive, maybe I'll just do a 15-minute meditation, or something, and do something more active with my body just to get me juiced. But right now, my morning practice is...
And you've been on the road for 3 weeks.
I've been on the road. My morning practice is extra important on the road, because otherwise I'm just so ungrounded. But my practice right now is I wake up, 45 minutes of meditation, 15 minutes of a somatic practice, which has been dance for me. So after the first hour, I feel great. And this is before coffee. My rule is I have to feel great before coffee. So similar to your rule. That's my first hour. And then I'll typically do 3 50-minute sessions of work, hyper productive, with 10-minute breaks in between those 50-minute blocks to just do some yoga or just sit, no phone, like just take a break. So my productivity is always handled. And then I'll typically do like a workout after that to like release from the mind, just get back into the body, 45 minutes. And then I'll maybe take a nap if I'm tired that day, 20 minutes. And then I will typically do some more work, a little bit less structured and more flowy. And then I'll finish my work day with a walk. I'll cook some dinner, and then I'll reflect in my journal. I'll study a bit. I'm really big into studying. I study all the time, and I'm in one of those seasons now. I'm in a 6-month sprint right now. It just started September 1st, so I'm hyper focused and disciplined.
6 months winter sprint.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Wow, not in Bali.
Yeah. Winter is, yeah. I'm in Bali in the winter, so yeah, that's my morning practice. But it's all around what's my result. I think people always ask the wrong question. Don't ask what do I do. Ask what do I want. What's my outcome?
Yeah.
Ask that first, then pick a morning practice after you're clear on that.
You're asking for how.
Yes, exactly.
And how is you're outsourcing things again. There's a guy called, I'd love to connect you. I think you'd really enjoy his kind of approach.
Cool.
What's his name? George. I can't remember. I was telling you. George. He said the thing around, if you ask me how to do something, it's like how to integrate. Fucking how to integrate. If you need to know how to integrate, your why is not strong enough. Because your why is linked to how to get there. Or like, I just think there's so much in that. Because if you're asking someone to tell you how, then you're not really figuring things out from the why. And I think if your why is strong enough, you'll know how to get there. You'll just keep doing it. I mean, again, not black and white, but he said if you're asking me how to do something, I'll find out where you are and kick you in the shin.
Got it.
But I think it's great because what's working for someone else, it's just like, what's healthy, what can I eat, and it just depends. There's so much context dependent on your how. Yeah. So that's your day routine pretty much.
Every day except Sunday. Sunday is like digital detox. So I'm doing actually a 30-day group challenge where every Sunday we're doing no technology, digital technology. So no phones, no Netflix, just like back to our roots of just reading a book, doing some journaling, seeing some people, cooking some food.
Okay.
It's the hardest one for me to do.
Interesting.
Because I'm so in the digital world.
Yeah, I love it.
It's amazing. The dopamine. Yeah, it's very hard for me to disconnect from it.
Okay, so why is your cock God?
Say that again?
Why is your cock God? And what's this penis meditation you've been doing?
I throw off the interviewee here.
You want to go?
Could you rephrase that question again?
So, you did a meditation, didn't you?
A cock meditation.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Would you care to share?
I'd love to share my cock meditation.
Great.
It's a great practice.
Have you heard the phrase "cock is God"?
No, I've never. That's why I was a bit confused. I think. Did I say that?
Maybe not.
No,
I said it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just like tongue in cheek, but it's also like maybe it is a portal to God.
Yeah.
And everything we've touched upon, and I wanted to feed this in because in reference to self-worth, how does it show up when you have sex? How does it show up when you masturbate? How does it show up? That is such a fucking portal. And it still blows my mind how, like, when I say it, it's like, well, yeah, of course. But, like, why does it, like, activate me so much in a way?
This is a very charged... This topic has a lot of charge for you, I've noticed.
Yeah, it does.
Yes,
it does.
Yes.
I don't think I've... because I know how much I can learn from what I've learned. I can learn from the ways in which I do things.
Yes.
So yeah, is there a lot of charge there? I don't think I've stepped foot fully in that direction.
Which direction?
Of sex, intimacy, tantra, like understanding, like. I mean, I can say a bit more maybe as we share.
Okay.
But I don't know. Is there a charge there? I think it's when I dive into something, I like to fully like give it reverence and really like give it space.
Yes.
And I've been doing that over the last 2 years.
Yes.
When I was in a relationship, it didn't feel necessary, but it probably would have benefited me for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, maybe I think it's just what I'm picking up on. I don't know what I'm feeling into more.
Yes. Is there a call for you to dive deeper into the sacred sexuality space?
It doesn't feel like I need to,
Mm-hmm.
but I know a lot. Like I went to an intimacy workshop in London, and it was like a singles intimacy workshop, and I got invited. It's not something that I would like actively seek, because
Right.
I'm full already. Like I'm pretty passionate about what I'm doing
I see.
with men's work, and
Yep.
yes, it can feed into that, which I'm kind of tuning into. But like I'm at capacity with all the things I want to do and learn about. But then, is that avoiding? I don't know. Maybe I'm open to that. But like, is it because it's another thing, isn't it? It's another window of like. But it seems to be the most important. I don't know.
I've definitely noticed that. Yeah. Well, that's one thing I've noticed is that when I said charge, I didn't necessarily mean there is negativity or resistance. I just meant it's a very passionate topic for you, and it does seem like you have an interest in it.
I think it's just the root to everything that how we live, you know.
That's a big statement. It's the root to everything.
It could be.
It sounds like there's some interest.
I'm really like open to it.
Yeah.
Being that way.
Yeah.
Like money, sex, power, all these things that we don't really talk about so much.
I love all those things.
Tell me.
Money, sex, and power. I'm down for give me some.
How about the statement that everything in life is about sex? Apart from sex, sex is about power.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. Is everything about sex? I mean,
I'm not after sex advice from you.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I don't think I'm the proper guest to ask that question.
But do you navigate the stuff with the men's spaces that you work with, like sexual experience? And
I'm big into talking about sexual shame because every man I've met has dealt with sexual shame, whether it's like not getting hard, or whether it's having too small of a penis or too big of a penis, or a weird shaped penis, or not feeling man enough in the bedroom, or being overly focused on performance, not having a deep connection. The list goes on, and I've just found I've been I felt pretty kind of relieved to hear all of these stories because I had shame around my sexuality. And to hear other men struggling with the exact same things or different things but the same feeling, it made me feel really relieved that I wasn't the only one. So I'm a huge believer in more dialogue around sex and sexual shame, especially with men, because it's one of the most vulnerable conversations we can have is around our sexual shame. Not just like shame, but sexual shame. And it's been for so many men, I've found that maybe 40% of the clients I've worked with, they have had a religious background. And so there's even more sexual shaming and negativity and trying to hide away our sexual energy. And I just think it's such an important conversation to have. I'm by no means a polarity or sexuality expert, by no means. But to just have conversations around sexuality and sharing our experiences, I think is inordinately valuable. I think my experience with sex is that it used to be so about performance and about orgasm, but it's so much more for me now about vulnerability, connection, energy. And I think just stopping watching porn for the most part. I've watched relatively not very much porn in the last 4 years in comparison to when I was growing up. And I think I think developing a self-pleasure practice has been amazing for me. Can I share my self-pleasure practice? It's kind of similar to the cock meditation. Sure. I think this is really valuable. My self-pleasure practice is just like I'll play like some meditative music, and I'll actually kind of like stretch my body out. It's not just about touching my cock. It's also about massaging other parts of my body, getting connected with my body, noticing where I can feel pleasure that's not on my cock as well. And then I'm just kind of, it's an exploration. And it's a feeling, and I'll often do kind of yoga poses kind of vibe and stretch my body out and just really get into a sort of sensual flow with myself, not using any visual stimulus, and sometimes not even using any internal visual stimulus either, just body sensation. And that has helped me be so much more in tune when I'm having sex with women, and has helped me last a lot longer because I'm not so focused on orgasm, more slow in my body, sensual, relaxed. And it's just, it's like a whole new dimension. And it's something I also haven't explored really. But it's something that's very curious to me, and I'm so shocked by what porn trains us into compared to what the reality of sex can be. It's very different than what porn shows us. I think some like the hardcore type sex can be fun and playful, especially for certain people. But there's this whole other dimension of it where it's so from the heart and about energy and vulnerability, and it's not like the orgasm, we're done kind of thing.
Good sound effects.
Thank you. Yeah, I did right into the mic.
Yes. I think it's important to play with that seriousness and playfulness. It doesn't need to be so serious. It can be playful. It can be a whole gamut of things. Like we can really create so much in that space, and it is there for the giving and taking. I'd add, and thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. I don't have too many people talking about sex on this.
Don't have too many people.
No.
Okay.
I'd say so.
Okay.
So it's good, and I guess it's where I'm at, and in my curiosities of how things I'm leaning into a bit more, and making more space for. But the sensuality practice has been a game changer for me. It's not that common, but when I do, and I put on like a scent, which is only specific in that environment, or I try and imagine it like if I was to have sex, make love with someone, then can I just masturbate and not have that person there, but do all the same stuff? Like make some nice food. It's like taking yourself out for a date.
Love that.
Pretty much.
Love that.
And you put on a nice candle and maybe some oils, like, and just like getting rid of the connotations of, because what comes up in that space, excuse the pun, but what comes up in that space in the mind, you can laugh at it.
I wasn't holding back the laugh.
But like what comes up in the mind and the emotions are what we associate having like nice things, treating myself nicely, and not just treating myself like I'm trying to have that quick fix or that quick sensation which feels good, which is the majority, let's be honest, the majority of our experience, maybe growing up, or even or even majority of people's experience now. It's just like really reconditioning that and just noticing it as an experiment, like treat it as an experiment of like going next. It doesn't have to be so serious. It's the same with like experimenting with digital detox or not drinking for a while. It's like experimenting with your sexuality and then just seeing how you can work with those emotions and see how that translates into your day-to-day life. Like I quit porn. I don't like to say it as like I'm so proud and I'm celebrating, because I don't think it's necessarily wrong, and I don't want that to be like a contrast of good and bad. But for me, it's helped me so much in the last over 2 years now of not going there, but still that, and maybe ketamine, that I've only had those things been really like pull me and have this kind of real like darker energy pull me towards them. Like talk about addiction. Some people have it with alcohol, some people have it with other drugs. But like only those two things I'd say have really like drawn me in and felt like
porn and ketamine.
I'd say so, or some other substance. But like as just because it's not just been porn, but it's that familiar energy that like it feels way out of my control. And it's like really just drawing me into like to something that doesn't. I don't feel like in control of this. But so that for me was a real thing and it still kind of shows up in my mind of like, it would be so easy. It's just this moment. It doesn't mean anything. But
thank you for sharing that.
I think it's just needs to be talked about just a little bit more, especially bringing it to like men's circles and stuff.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, bro. Anything you want to speak to on that, or?
No, I feel pretty complete.
Yeah. I would love to talk a bit about the spaces you're creating.
Sure.
The men's circles. What's like the dream? What are you working towards? Because you're pretty focused. You love being productive. Like, what are you working towards in your life?
Thank you for asking that. I think first of all, I actually hesitate. I'm hesitating. I'm not gonna share like my big goal, because I don't like being very public about my big goals.
Makes sense.
However, I just think other people's energy can affect it. And also, I found it's not great to share goals beforehand neurologically, because then you get a dopamine rush before you get the goal. So there's less motivation to go achieve it because you're already feeling good about it, but you haven't actually done it yet. But I would love to have a massive, like the men's group that I have, 20, 30 men right now, but I would love to have like 1,000. Like I would love to have like a proper movement of men who are all living from their heart and living from their gifts, and are sharing that with their family, with their wives, with, you know, and living from that space. It's something that I've was lucky at early in my life to not fall into the consumerism and like hamster wheel. Like I dropped out of business school really early in my life just because I realized this is just kind of bullshit, and I followed my heart, and it's led me to, you know, here right now where I really truly have such a deep sense of fulfillment and aliveness and confidence and great relationships. And I just want more men to just be really happy before they die and feel empowered, and, you know, not feel small and weak and out of control, and which is what many men feel. And I would just love a ton of men to feel that. And I would also love them to be sharing it and creating their own men's circles in their communities. I work mainly with people in North America, especially Canada, where I'm from. And there's a hero's journey thing of like bringing the boon back to the village. Like I've done my hero's journey in a lot of ways, and it feels very cool for me to be giving everything I've learned and experienced to the men in the community where I came from. And I would just love a massive global community of just guys that are connected to their badassery and getting after it, and, you know, liberating love in the world.
Beautiful, man.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Do it. Entirely possible.
I'm trying. I'm trying. It's a big ask, but I'm trying.
Yeah, like without like giving too many details or going too far into it, or what do you feel has to happen for you to call that in a bit more?
I basically have to learn some skills, and build some relationships.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
And how about you? I'd love to hear yours as well while we're on this topic.
Really resonate with your non-sharing of the bigger the goals.
Yes.
I think that's really important.
I think so too.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking that away, because I've shared a lot with even people that I've met first. That's like, this is my dream, this is where I want to be, and I have that, but I also know, when has that ever worked? Never. And to have such an attachment to some sort of future outcome is a little unwise, because the world's also going to change a lot, and we don't know what world we're going to live in 10 years. So I think it's just making space to be more present, but also having the mission. Like my mission is to create more spaces that we can access more of ourselves. Sounds like yours is very similar in a way.
Very similar.
It's like to really like, because it's not going to take much to just have a little walk around and notice the vacancy in people.
Oh my God, yeah.
And just to tune into that a little bit, and then be curious enough to ask some questions, but be interested in people and find out like what prevents them from really grabbing life, and just like you are doing, man. I just want to reflect that as well. Like I see in you. Thank you. I feel like you're really onto something, and I just want to be a part of it, but also contribute to it and help in any way I can. And I want to know how it feels for you to like come to England and like also be embraced by some people. Like I don't know if I can speak for myself saying I've embraced you, but like I maybe that has happened for you, and maybe you felt that. Like how does it feel? Maybe for anyone listening that's not or maybe is in a situation which they just feel like there's such an urge to travel, and I think everyone should fucking be doing that at some point in their life, just to go and just to be in different environments and just learn from different people. What ingredients have you tuned into that helps that, and why do you think it's happening for you now?
Oh, that's a great question. First of all, I have felt very welcome. You're one of the people that's made me feel that. Thank you so much. I felt really grateful. I canceled my flight home to Canada because of the tribe out here. I had a flight booked home. I canceled it because I did feel so embraced and connected. And I felt, even though I've been on this personal development journey, I felt pretty lonely, especially in the beginning. And I let go of one of the best decisions I made. One of the hardest ones was letting go of my friend group that I had when I was 17, partying on the weekends. I just knew that they weren't a reflection of what I wanted to become. And so I had to start saying no every time they asked, and I just said no until they stopped asking. And with one friend, I had like a proper breakup because there was just some negativity there. Like, this is like a guy who I would see 3 days a week, best friends. So that was one of the hardest points in my life, but one of the best decisions I made because it opened up space to make me available for new connections. And being in the UK has been one of those moments for me where I felt so proud of myself for going through that hard time, and so grateful because this is like tribe. You guys actually can see me. You have the ability and the awareness to actually see me. I feel seen by you guys, and that means so much to me. And I mean, yeah, it's just such a gift to me. It means everything. It's one of the reasons I'm going back to Bali, is because I also feel that there. And yet, I mean, to get to this point where these opportunities and things are happening, I think it's just about doing the healing work where you actually are a little bit vibrating and magnetic, and just like your light shining. You know, it's not held down by a bunch of darkness. And then I think it's about putting yourself in a position. I'm lucky enough to have a business online where I can easily travel here. So finding ways to create a lifestyle where you can move around and meet people and say yes to things. I think it's really that simple. I just think when we're really being unapologetically us, it is the most natural process in the world to attract our tribe. As long as we're putting ourselves in positions. If you're living in Antarctica, it'll be a little bit more difficult than if you're going to Medicine Festival.
Real tribe out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who knows? But yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Thank you for seeing that, brother.
Thank you, man. Fucking beautiful. Yeah, no, I just, yeah, can't wait for some experiences that we share.
Me too.
At some point. Who knows what's going to unfold? Surrender to whatever, but yeah, man, I'm here for it.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise. I hope you know that as well. Would love to support you any way I can. You're dope.
Anything else you want to share, or any last final things we've missed, or any things to point people to?
Yeah. I love to end these podcasts. Just I want everybody here to know, especially the men. Any of the ladies watching, I love you too. But any of the men out there, I really want you to know how powerful and capable you are. For some reason, this is what I always care to share. That no matter what you're going through, whether it's a breakup or financial troubles or some type of stress or some health problem, that there are answers, and that the moment we stop looking is the moment that we fail. But what if your next answer, what if your next opportunity was just right around the corner? And if you can just develop a little bit of faith and trust yourself a little bit, show up a little bit, I think you can get what you want, and you can create that dream that you have.
Yeah, beautiful, man.
Aho, baby.
Always end with a hug.